My name is Will Rochfort. I am an artist based in the United Kingdom. I do semi-realistic paintings, quite large oil paintings. Usually there's a narrative, there's a story. They're always figurative. Every single painting is different, but hopefully the style of painting kind of stays the same. I kind of stumbled, I think by accident, into a seminar about Norman Rockwell. And Norman Rockwell, I know in America, I think everybody knows who Norman Rockwell is, but in the
Yeah.
UK, he's much less known. And I had never, I think I may have been aware of his work, but not really. And I stumbled into this seminar, kind of snuck in at the back. And this presentation was about Norman Rockwell. And I've said this before, but it was like being struck by lightning. It was like a real kind of fork in the road moment of like, oh my God, what is this? What's this work? This is kind of the direction that I would love to take. And so straight after that, I went and I researched as much about his work as I possibly could. And then at the end of that first year doing illustration, we had an 8-week project, like a final project. And they said to us, we can do anything we want. And so everybody said they were going to do illustration projects and animation. So they all went home to do it, back to their uni houses, and kind of disappeared. So I had this huge room, huge workspace, like a big open hall, all to myself. And I was sort of just tucked away in one corner, and I was trying oil painting for the first time, and I was doing a painting in the style of Norman Rockwell. And so for 8 weeks, I obsessed over every detail of this painting. It was like a fork in the road. It was like suddenly, wow, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is the style that I would like to continue to follow and pursue. And then, so when the 8 weeks was up, we had to present the work at the end. And my tutor, she said to me, "What are you going to do with the painting now?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "You should try selling it." And again, it was like being hit. The whole 8 weeks, I hadn't thought for a second, what, someone might want to buy this. So then that summer, I went home and I did. I sold the painting. I sold the painting to the guy that is in the painting that posed for me, which is nice because it means I can still go and see the painting if I want to. Having that kind of realization that painting was what I wanted to do. It wasn't illustration. It wasn't comic books. It wasn't that path. It was the painting. So I stayed at Kingston University and I changed to fine art. And it was such a kind of culture shock because I went from the tight deadlines and the discipline of illustration to the complete openness of fine art. They basically said to me, "There's your studio, there's your space, and we'll see you later." And that was it. And they just sort of leave you to it. And I remember thinking, well, what do I do though? And they said, "You can do whatever you want." I thought, what do you mean I can do whatever I want? And so I just started painting. And basically I was in the minority as a painter on the course. And then I was in the even smaller minority as a realist painter. And it came with its challenges. There were some amazing artists on that course, of all different styles, of installation pieces and performance pieces and video pieces and abstract painting and some of the weirdest, wonderful stuff. And I think I came along with my kind of pretty pictures of people, narrative paintings, realism. And I think some of the lecturers, they tried to sort of stretch and pull and push me in directions that I didn't want to go. And so instead, I just kept my head down and I used the 2 years that were left just to focus on painting. I'm self-taught. They didn't teach us anything. But it was great for me because once I got into that rhythm of, okay, I can do whatever I want to do, instead of sort of going crazy, I focused and I said, okay, well, I know what I want to do, so I'm going to use this time to do that. And I spent the rest of the 2 years kind of honing my skills, I suppose, and refining it. I mean, only a little bit. I've changed again since leaving uni and refined it even more. But it was great just to have that freedom to do that for those 2 years. Yeah, it was good. It was a good time.
It sounds like something to look back on with just amazing fondness, that Rockwell moment forward.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Rockwell thing was the first one I saw was one. It was a baseball themed piece with the pitcher and the umpires in the back, and the pitcher's got his leg up really high. You can see the umpire down. Do you know the one? Do you know
I
the one I'm
think so,
talking about?
yeah. I think so, yeah.
And I saw that, and I thought, oh my God, what's this? Wow! And it was just kind of his like the technical side of his work, amazing, obviously brilliant, but it was more the kind of the storytelling side, which I kind of fell in love with. You know, that his ability to kind of craft a whole story. I mean, sometimes his work I know was quite saccharine and sweet, and I don't tend to go towards that style. I prefer his stuff that is a bit more thoughtful, a bit more meaningful, I suppose. I've got all his books here, and if I'm still even today, if I'm feeling uninspired and I need a boost, it will be his books that I go to, you know, just to get that kind of. I'll just look at a few of his paintings, and it'll give me a bit of a bit of a pick me up, and then I'll get back to it.
And you didn't let the fine artists get to you at all. You didn't
No,
let them.
no, I don't want. I love the abstract painting. Some of it I saw, it was incredible, and I tried it maybe once or twice, and I couldn't do it. I can't do it. It's such a skill to take shapes and colors and in an abstract form and present it in a way that works. I find that so incredible, and I kind of wish there was part of me wishes I could do it. I tried. I remember I one day I was starting a painting. And I was just blocking it in with some big blocks of color, and so it looked very abstract. And one of the lecturers walked past, and he leaned in, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's looking really good, much better." And he walked off, and it was. I should have just left it like that, but that was just the base coat. That was just the start of it.
That story of you sort of hunched over for the 8 weeks working on your thing and discovering your
Yeah,
life really in this 8 week period is just like with not knowing the broader context of what you were up to at that moment and then doing the thing.
yeah.
It's really heartening and I don't know, it's really amazing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And then when you get out, you had mentioned again in saying yes to any job in art. Can you talk about saying yes?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I did. I said yes to everything. Any kind of art-based painting, art-based job that came along, and I took on everything. I mean, the the big one was portraits. I did so many portraits of people's kids, like hundreds of portraits of people's children. And I painted motorbikes. I painted a nurse, a waiting room at a doctor's surgery once. Painted the walls. I just did so many, just everything, anything I could, and I didn't mind it because even though I wasn't charging loads of money, but it meant I was just about able to kind of make the bills by painting. You know, when I came out of university, I got a job, at the local hospital, a part-time job, just helping out a few days a week whilst I kept my painting going on the side. So I had that, but then I was just saying yes to everything I could just to kind of keep my foot in the game, I suppose, a little bit. So I was working at the hospital, taking on every small commission that I could, but then also working on my own stuff over here, kind of in the background, hoping that one day I'd be able to just focus on that completely. The other reason I say take every opportunity is because you don't know what it will lead to. So there was this one time I came home from university after that first year when I'd finished that first painting, that first oil painting, and I moved back in with my mum and dad just for the summer. Mum saw in the local paper, she saw an advert, this big, tiny advert, and it was at the back of the paper, and it was for a local agricultural event that happens every summer. I live in the New Forest, right on the south coast of England, so it's a big sort of agricultural event, and there was a stand there who were looking for artwork, but they were looking for equestrian artwork. And my mum said, you should enter, you should give them a call. And I said, typical student, I said, no, mum, I don't paint horses. I'm not going to do that. But she called the number, and she got in touch with this lady called Anne. She said, you should see my son's work. He doesn't paint horses, but you should see it. And Anne said, okay, all right, send it over. And so I did, probably kind of, begrudgingly sent over my work. And Anne came straight back and she said, I love it, and I'd like to show it at the show. So I took my paintings over there and I met Anne. I was very nervous. I showed my work for the week. I didn't sell anything, but I met some lovely people, and that was it. And then at the end of it, I said, thanks very much to Anne, and I left and went back to university. 2 years later, in my final year, I was walking back to my university house, and my phone rang, and it was Anne. And she said that she had just been put in charge of putting together a group of artists to travel the country in support of the London Olympics, which were coming up, the 2012 London Olympics. And she said she'd been asked to put together a group of artists. Would I like to be involved? And I said, yeah, I'd love to, absolutely. And so suddenly I was touring the country, showing my work in these incredible places. The paintings I was doing were kind of sport themed, so it wasn't what I would normally be doing. It meant that I was getting all this kind of exposure and experience I would never have got otherwise. And then that finished, and then a little while later, Anne phoned me again because they had just opened a gallery just before the London Olympics, a gallery at Heathrow Airport Terminal 5 for kind of sport themed paintings and sculpture. Would I like to be involved? I said, yes, please. And so then I had my work shown in there during the Olympics. And then when the Olympics finished, Anne phoned me again and said they want to keep the gallery, but now it's just a normal gallery. It's not just Olympic sport themed paintings. Would you like to be involved? I said, yes, please. And so now the gallery was situated right next to the first class lounge. It's hard to kind of get across how life-changing that it was, and that some of the most famous, powerful, wealthy, influential people were being walked past the gallery, and you had 5 seconds as they walked past the gallery to grab them. So they only wanted really big work. It was incredible. So suddenly I was meeting these people that I would never dreamed of meeting beforehand, and it was just incredible. And it really did change my life in such a big way. And I stayed with them until 2019. And all of that came from that tiny advert that my mum saw and I nearly said no to. And I said this before as well, but so it does mean that everything I have to say thanks to my mum, because she is, if I had said no to that, if she had said, okay, or if she hadn't seen it, then I think things would have been very different. So that's why I say take every opportunity, because you don't know what it would lead to. I did other things. I did contemporary art fairs, and I would meet people. You have a lovely conversation, then you say goodbye, and then 2 years later or 5 years later, they call you up and they said, "Oh, I saw you at this show 2 years ago. Can we talk about a painting?" And you never really know what it will lead to. And all those things together meant that over time I quickly gave up the hospital job, and a few years later gave up the commission. Now I can just focus on my own stuff.
Yeah, here's to moms and old
Yeah.
newspapers, tiny little ads in old newspapers.
I know. Yeah. God, I'm aging myself, aren't
Landlines. No, this is the way, man. Do you have a copy of that ad? Did your mom keep it?
I don't. Oh, that's such a good point. No, I don't.
Let's get the newspaper, we'll get the archive, and we'll find it.
Yeah.
Go online.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's digitized somewhere.
Oh, maybe.
Are you your own agent?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, so I haven't worked with a gallery. So for those first 10 years or so, I worked with a few different galleries, some great galleries, some not so great galleries. And then in 2019, I actually left the Terminal 5 gallery. Really difficult, big decision, but I felt I wanted to go in kind of a different direction. And so I left there, and I was due to sign a contract with a different gallery, a UK based gallery, quite a big gallery. And it was all in motion. It was all set and ready to go. I hadn't signed anything yet. And there was going to be a big launch campaign. And I was doing paintings in preparation for a big kind of opening exhibition. And then the day that we were due to launch was the day that the UK got put into the first lockdown because of COVID. And so obviously the whole thing never happened. And I am kind of very grateful that it didn't, in a way, because I don't think it would have worked so well for me personally. And so, yeah, but since then, so when was that? That was 2020. So 6 years later, I haven't worked with a gallery since. And I am just my own agent. I just represent myself. And I really like it, actually. I really do. I like that connection. Like I said, it is mostly commissions these days. And having that connection with the person that I'm doing a painting for, I love that. I love that. And I've got some great friends out of it. And I don't like the word client. I really hate the word client for when someone's commissioning a painting. So I try not to use it, because that feels very business-like. Feels like people sat in suits talking over a boardroom. It's not that. It's a real sort of connection between me and the person that I'm doing a painting for. Yeah, I much prefer working that way. I'm not saying I won't ever work with a gallery. I'd love to at some point, but Right now, it's just me.
Every artist that I know who is successful works so much that it's inevitable in my mind
Yeah.
that they are a success. Can you tell me about your work ethic and how much you work?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I have realized over the years, I think I am a workaholic. I definitely am. It doesn't stop. It, I have my studio here, which is about a mile away from where I live, and I love this because it means I can shut the door at the end of the day and physically get away from it. I used to work from home, and that was fine, but I found that I couldn't step away completely, and I find having that separation is crucial for me because otherwise I think I would be sneaking off to the studio all the time just to tweak that bit of the painting,
Yeah.
all night. And I still come back here sometimes in the evenings, but it's constant. It is absolutely constant. It never stops. Even when I'm not here, there is the business side of it. There is the social media side of it, which is a full-time job in itself. I'm constantly thinking of new ideas. I'm in the early stages of the next 5 paintings, sketching for them. So I'm sort of researching and thinking about those pictures whilst I'm still finishing up my current painting. Uh, it's changed slightly with my kids. So I at the weekends I try and just completely be there with my kids, and when I leave the studio in the evening, I'll go home. I'm with them. When they're in bed, that's when I'll come back in if I need to. I've probably got better at it, trying to have the work and life, that's kind of work life balance. I have got better. I try and relax slightly a little bit these days and think it's okay. I don't have to be rushing quite as much as I was to get into the studio to work, because it's okay if I'm half an hour late, than I thought I was going to be. I was really hard on myself before if I was late into work, or if I didn't stay late enough at the end of the day. I'm a bit better at that, I would say. But it is definitely true that the more you put in, the more you get out. And it doesn't matter how long I've done this for, and the successes over the years, and the sales, and whatever it doesn't matter how much of that has happened. I still am so aware that it's kind of what I feel like is like it's on a knife edge, and if I don't stay on it, will it fall apart? I don't think it will, but that's just how my brain works. Maybe, I suppose, you asked me if I was an optimist. I am in a lot of ways, but I'm also a catastrophizer. And my brain goes straight to the worst case scenario. And it says, "Oh God, if you stop, it's all going to fall apart." And I support my family, and so I've got to keep them in mind. But that's a really drawn, long way of saying, yeah, I work a lot, and it just doesn't stop. Basically, doesn't stop.
What is Instagram?
Oh wow. Instagram for me is a way of sharing my work with a global platform.
You have 1.2 million followers.
Yes.
Does that stress you out? Does that make you happy? Does it do both?
Both. Yeah, I would say both. Yeah, like I said, it is a full-time job. It's incredible. Again, that kind of community that I've built up over the years is amazing. I've made great friends on there, and I've met some incredible people and achieved some things through Instagram and social media. It's incredible. It's amazing. But it's like a constantly moving target. As soon as you think you've cracked it, something changes and it doesn't quite work so well. And I'm interested in it. That's the thing. I am interested in it, and I quite enjoy that side of it. And so I quite like trying to stay on top of it. It's constantly in the back of my mind, and it has probably shifted my day to day. It's a big part of my day to day, big part of my business, is sharing my work. I think the key thing is that I quite like doing it. I enjoy it. I enjoy interacting with people, and I enjoy making the videos, and I enjoy sharing my process. If I didn't, I don't think I would do it. It's kind of a fun challenge.
Once you become successful, however you define it, you're earning
Yeah.
money, you're creating projects you want, you are feeling like your life is where the direction that you want it to start heading. What was it like the first time that you said no to a project?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, quite scary. I can give an example of this. Quite a few years ago now, I was contacted by someone. They were interested in a commission that ultimately I think it would have tied me in for a couple of years, and I could have named my price, I think, as well, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. It was kind of adjacent to what I would do, but I know I'm being very vague. I don't want to give too many details, but it was it just wasn't creatively what I wanted to do. And because it would have locked me in for, I think, so long, I said no. And it wasn't an easy decision, because obviously, like I said, I've got my family, and I spoke to my wife about it a lot. And ultimately, it was just, that's not the reason that I do this. Obviously, I want to support my family and live my life doing this and have a good life. And I do, and it's great. But ultimately, I don't want that to be the sole reason I do it. And so I said no, and it was fine, and that was that. And don't get me wrong, if I'm fortunate, I'm in a position where I have other things going on, other work. If I didn't have anything going on, I would have jumped in there so fast and said, yes, anything you want, don't worry about it. But because I'm not, it gave me, I had something, other things going on, so it was okay. But yeah, saying no to that was definitely a scary one, but I'm glad I did. I remember when I was, and I was starting out, and I was taking on all those painting jobs, and I loved doing it. I really loved doing it, genuinely, because I was painting for a living. Brilliant. It's what I always wanted. But then I noticed, as I got busier with what I would say my usual style of work, my style, my stuff. So I had my paintings going on over here, and I had the commissions of portraits and things over here. And as my stuff got busier, I noticed ever so slightly, it's probably imperceptibly to anybody else, I noticed the quality dropped slightly in the commissions I was doing, just the tiniest bit. People wouldn't notice it, but I did. And I think it was because my brain was so ingrained into the take every job that you can because this might end tomorrow, in that mindset, that suddenly I didn't realize, actually, maybe I didn't need to do that anymore. And so the quality was just dropped slightly because I was thinking, I'd rather be doing that painting over there. And I realized it, and I was like, oh, that's not good. I don't ever want to put something out there that's mediocre, especially if someone has commissioned a painting. So I remember that so clearly, and I thought, okay, well, that's not good. And I think if I am doing something that I don't want to be doing, it shows in the work. And no, I don't want that, and the person who's buying the painting doesn't want that. So I remember I'm becoming very aware of that very quickly and suddenly, and thinking, okay, well, let's try and never do that. If something came along and it was so incredible, and with something in the film industry or something, because I love my movies so much, I drop everything and do it. But generally, no, I think it's focus on the ones that I want to do, because then you'll see it in the work.
No, it's a great journey from saying yes to everything to beginning to say no to certain things. And
Yeah,
that takes that 20 years.
definitely. Yeah. So what was it? It was I went full time in 2010, and then I guess it was, yeah, probably about 10. I'd say about 10 years. So it's a long journey.
What do you think is the responsibility of an art student?
Yeah, I would say, again, only kind of speaking from my own experience, I would say know what you want to do and follow that, because it is quite easy to be led in all sorts of different directions. And whatever style of work or path that you want to take, be it for commercial reasons or be it for artistic, creative reasons, whatever, there is no wrong answer there. Know what it is, be clear on it, and just follow that, pursue that. I think that is what I did. I think that otherwise it is possible to kind of lose your focus. And I think as long as you have that in the back of your mind at all times, that kind of end point, okay, well, I want to end up here. I want to end up here, this style of work. I want to be doing this type of thing. Then it's make it happen, isn't it? It's make it happen. Do the things you need to do to make that happen. And just again, from my experience, I was kind of pulled in all different directions by a lot of different things and different people. But I knew at all times, no, that's not what I want to do. So my responsibility, and I guess the responsibility of the student, is to know, okay, this is what I want. So let's take advantage of all the things around me and the opportunities and the resources, but to pursue it in that direction. I think persistence is the key, isn't it? You've got to persist no matter what. You're going to hear when you're starting out, whether you're a student or if you're going out into the wide world and trying to do it for a living, persistence is the absolute key, because you're going to hear no a lot more than you hear yes. So be persistent, don't stop, just keep going, and know what your goal is, what you're aiming for.
Is illustration a bad word?
No, absolutely no, definitely not. No, I get that sometimes in the in comments on my posts. They just every now and again people have said this isn't art, this is illustration. I think, well, what a weird thing to say. That doesn't make any sense. We like it's okay. I'm not entirely sure what the difference is, and I've got history with this because of the Norman Rockwell thing. He was never accepted by the art world because he was, just an illustrator. That's what they call him. Oh, you're just an illustrator, whatever that means. Um, no, no, illustration is not a bad word. I think some of my biggest inspirations are illustrators.
I don't think it is, but I think when I was a younger fine artist, I had this much more this idea of purity that came from some other source that somehow illustration was lesser. And the one person who really
Yeah,
bridged the gap for me is the only person I think who escaped illustration to become a fine artist and close the gap for me, which is Edward Hopper. Uh,
yeah. He started with illustrators. He did a lot of amazing kind of ink drawings, didn't he? Of
yeah.
just beautiful, amazing stuff. And I love Hopper just so much. And I can see the illustrative side to his work. It shines through, doesn't it? But with how painterly he is as well. And the themes that he chose to portray are themes that I would love to kind of touch on at some point in my work. Those kind of themes of loneliness, and kind of quiet moments that he always was so good at.
No, no,
No.
no. And maybe you need to wait for the kids to leave home before you explore those moments of quietness.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that
Um,
doesn't exist in my world at the moment.
I bet. I bet. Yeah, this was really, really amazing. And thank you. So appreciative.
No, my pleasure. No, no, I really, really enjoyed it. It was good. I would spend weekends in instead of being out, I don't know, playing football or something. I'd be inside and I would be drawing comic books and making little cardboard models and uh, doing like stop motion animations. It's just that's all I ever wanted. I was because I was happy doing it. I was happy being in my corner of my bedroom. They let me paint on my walls in my room as well. So I would draw these characters from films on my walls, and I loved it. Yeah, and I was always, if you couldn't find me, I was in my room. I was drawing. I was painting. I was playing with my toys. I was much happier doing that than being outside. I did go outside, I promise, but I think, yeah, I think I can remember I would draw all the time, and I would at my grandparents I would draw on the back of envelopes as well. I just scribble away, and it was always comic books and superheroes and things like that. That was where my focus was, and I think even at school the teachers, they recognized it as well, and they would push it and encourage it.
How important is it to have adults in your life when you are a kid who's interested in art to encourage you and create space for it?
I think it's really important. I mean, I have kids. I've got two small children, and they're both very talented in with arts and crafting and drawing. And I try and encourage it. I don't ever want to push it. I don't want to force it too hard on them because it's what I do. I don't want them thinking that I'm just trying to get them to follow in my footsteps. But for me, I had so much, like I said, I had so much encouragement, and it only ever made me want to do it more, which I think is brilliant. I know there are probably examples, aren't there, of people who didn't have that, and that drove them even more. That kind of gave them like a fuel to their fire to want to pursue it even more, and probably can be seen in their work as well. But for me, no, I was always very much, yeah, encouraged, and they were very enthusiastic. And even much later down the line, when I started saying I think I want to do this for a living, I can imagine now that I'm a parent, I can having that conversation must be a bit nerve wracking. You think, oh God, your kid wants to be an artist. If you peeled off the paint in my old room, you'd see the aliens from the first Men in Black movie.
It's going to be worth something someday.
Yeah, sure.